Hey, I don't know if you guys heard, but the Vikings actually won that game. I know it doesn't feel like it at all in any way, but somehow, some way, the Vikings come out on top in London. Let's break it down.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day every single day. I appreciate my hashtag everydayers so very much. You know, make the world go around. I'm coming to you from London, where the Vikings just went to 3-2 by defeating the Cleveland Browns 21-17. We are going to break it all down for you today. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Today on the show, the Vikings have a winning record again with an entirely second team offense, a defense that was getting gashed on the ground. This game was unbelievably frustrating wire to wire until suddenly, with 25 seconds left, you look up at the scoreboard and you realize, oh, that was a go-ahead touchdown. Whoa, the Vikings are winning. It felt like they should have been down by 20 the whole game. But that isn't what happened, and the results matter, not the feelings, so here we are. We're at 3-2. There's a lot to discuss about this one. There's Carson Wentz's performance, and Kevin O'Connell still being like non-committal on the podium about quarterback, although we kind of know what that means. There's the defense, the run defense in particular, and how it struggled, but how the coverage played really, really well against a sneaky good group of wide receivers I think they have in Cleveland. And the continually mounting injury issues that lead the Vikings to be essentially a backup team by the time this game ends. And in a lot of those ways, that might continue through the bye. We'll discuss over the bye, especially. We'll look at practice reports and stuff, and we'll get a sense. But we'll discuss all that in a little more depth later in the show. FYI, as I am in London, I was at the game. That's why I'm a little bit hoarse, and I'm on hotel Wi-Fi. So if I start to be a little choppy, or if the video doesn't look as great as it usually does, that's why. Hopefully by tomorrow, I'll be back in the United States with my real setup, and things will be back to the nice, smooth, silky tones that you're used to. But let's start this game by just, if you missed it, if you slept in, the game was just wire-to-wire frustration. The Vikings start the game with a special teams penalty, 4 special teams penalties in the first half, give the Browns a huge field position advantage. And this was a field position game. This was punt, 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 punt. The Vikings' first offensive drive was a turnover. The Browns end up getting 7 points off of it. And then it was just punts and punts and punts. And with special teams gaffes and penalties, or just kind of poor special teams play, the Browns always had short fields and the Vikings always had long fields. And so they fell behind, kind of losing that field position battle, or just letting Quinshon Judkins run absolutely wild. The one drive that I think really bugs me happens in the third quarter. It takes up most of the third quarter. In this drive, the Vikings give up, I think it's a 13 play, maybe a 12 play, 13 play drive, touchdown drive. Mostly on the ground. I think like 64 of the yards of the like 75 or 80 yards was rushing. The Browns have a rookie quarterback, 5th round pick, who was basically incapable of ever doing anything if you ever asked him to make a difficult throw. He made one difficult throw to David Njoku with a tackle in his lap because Dallas Turner blew him up, who I thought Dallas Turner, by the way, had a fantastic game. And it was like a really good pass to Njoku, and then the touchdown pass at the end was also pretty good to Njoku. Otherwise, it was like he was throwing flats, he was throwing little checkdowns, stuff over the middle, easy stuff. And the second he had to do anything hard, because it was 3rd and 11 or whatever, he would sail it, he would miss it, he would throw dangerous passes. He could not operate in an offense that had anything other than dump it off and hope that something happens after the play. And enough stuff happened after the play that was, for the second week in a row, an actually good offense. So Atlanta did that to the Vikings. Pittsburgh did that to the Vikings. The Browns did that to the Vikings. I think we have a serious, serious issue here when the whole philosophy of your defense is throw it short and tackle, right? Force them to throw short and tackle. But then you're not tackling, or you're letting those plays be productive enough that they go down the field often enough, then you have a huge issue. What's nice is the Browns made enough mistakes on their end. They got enough penalties on their end. While the Vikings had a ton of penalties, the Browns kind of went toe for toe, mistake for mistake, and screwed up enough that you had enough long down and distance situations behind the chains that the defense could really get in there and sing. You had a great play from, I think it turned into a sack from Levi Drake Rodriguez. You had a sack by Ivan Pace that was cleanup after I think it was Grenard got in. There were enough big time plays where the Browns only did score 17 points here despite being spotted a couple short fields. Statistically, this game for the defense is really good, but I do still see the seeds of like concern if you get a quarterback who's not a potato. And Dylan Gabriel in this was a potato. They ran the ball. The problem is they ran the ball so gosh darn well that Dylan Gabriel never really had to do anything to get the Browns into reasonable spots. That drive in the third quarter bugs me a lot. It takes up like a whole quarter basically. That drive took like 8-9 minutes off the clock. And it was completely unfancy, just run. Zone. Just spam the easy thing and just blow out Jalen Redmond and Levi Drake Rodriguez, who were who were on the field for most of that drive. There were sub opportunities. There were stoppages. There was time for the Vikings to sub. This wasn't like a no huddle, you caught him in a bad personnel situation. The Vikings just didn't do it. And for a lot of the second half, Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen sat on the bench. I'll be curious to see like the total snap count, but like it felt to me like the backups were playing a lot. And I mean, you had explosive plays, and then you look up and you see Bo Richter is the one chasing. Like, what is he doing on the field? That bugs me a lot. You basically had your twos out there and they got gashed. You put the ones back out there and it was, red zone. Touchdown Browns, and they got to go ahead. The defense did steal itself, though, when the Browns went into, when it was too obvious that they would run and the defense finally loaded the box. And it leads me to the question, why weren't you doing that in the first place? But the defense does steal itself. And the way I always come out of these games, I'm like, it feels like the defense played bad, but then you look at the statistics and, okay, well, they only gave up this many yards and 17 points, and it actually wasn't too bad. The offense, on the other hand, was pretty disastrously bad until the very end of the game, when Carson Wentz puts together a touchdown drive that scores with 25 seconds left on the clock, and you're really, really happy, and everybody's high-fiving. The Vikings win. That drive was much better than anything else we saw from Carson Wentz. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what I saw from him, what I've seen from him in the last two games in person, being able to feel it, not having all of the graphics telling you what's going on, but just the feel of, does it feel like he's holding it too long or not? Like it's very analog. There's a purity to it. And I guess what that feels like to me, I'll get into that in a second. But what I will say is, like, there's a lot more about this game that I'm frustrated about than I'm like proud of. And I think if you walk away as the Vikings, I don't think you walk away from this game being like, look at us, we're the coolest, we're so great. I think you have to go into the bye if you're Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings, considering making major changes to the way you operate. The Vikings still can't get lined up, they still get false starts, they still don't have that. I know Blake Brando was playing center for the first time, but they still are breaking the huddle too late. Like there's still operational issues, whether there's a veteran or a young guy in JJ McCarthy out there. I think there's still like structural issues with the way the Vikings do what they do that are difficult, that need to be helped. But it's super, super nice to be asking those questions when you're 3-2 and you don't need to be in like desperation mode to come back in the standings. 3-2, you're in it. You're ready to go. And you got a pretty tough gauntlet coming up. The Eagles, who were shown to be vulnerable. I mean, they're killable, right? They're not immortal. With the Broncos go into Philly and win that game. So that's what happens after the bye. And then there's the Chargers, Ravens, the Lions. Like the next stretch of games is just like utterly brutal. But that doesn't mean you have to chalk it up to 0-4, right? Go win a couple of them, 2-2 through that, right? Go 1-3 through that, steal one, steal two, stay in it. Now you're 3-2, and suddenly going just 500 through that stretch is an acceptable goal. So that's what we're going to talk about there. But I do still want to talk about Carson Wentz, the struggles of the run defense more generally, and then of course we have to talk injuries. So all of that stuff will be next here on the Locked On Vikings podcast. This episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by Square. What is in your neighborhood? Your favorite neighborhood spots all run on Square. I'm talking about that hole-in-the-wall taco place, or that one takeout joint that you really like to get to and you're on a first-name basis with the person at the counter or the owner of the place. Those small mom-and-pop shops that make a neighborhood what they are. That is what Square wants to support. These businesses are what bring people together, what make a community, and when neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. Sports can be something that brings all of these neighborhoods together, whether it's gathering for game day rituals or just going into one of these hole-in-the-wall joints and seeing like Viking stuff everywhere, right? Or just being part of that fan base that calls a place like that home. It's been pretty cool being on the road here and walking into a place and seeing like their favorite soccer team everywhere or something like that. And it's the same thing in any place in the United States that is part of one of these tight-knit neighborhoods. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnNFL to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. Today's episode is also brought to you by Mazda, and in particular, Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. This is something that Mazda's been doing with us at Locked On all year long. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep that game moving forward. This week, the Mazda's Moving the Game Forward Player of the Week honors are going to have to go to Justin Jefferson. This is one of those games. Jefferson ends up, I don't have the total in front of me, it had to be over like 125, right? He ends up absolutely carrying the Vikings down the stretch with explosive plays, getting open in the middle of the field, getting open enough, especially on the sideline, to give Carson Wentz a makeable throw, and then bailing out that throw when it isn't that great. That goes to Justin Jefferson. And we've talked a lot about the details that Justin Jefferson uses to be so great. Mazda uses a similar philosophy. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Moving on here with the Locked On Vikings podcast. Let's talk about Carson Wentz. So Carson Wentz in this game was absolute cheeks. I'm sorry. Like, there's no way to like sugarcoat it. He was bad for like the lion's share of this game. And I wonder what you could see on TV. Because from the stadium, and we were in the nosebleeds, which is kind of nice because it gives you like a really good bird's eye view, right? Like I'm watching the live all 22. And you are going to hate how many open receivers you see in pivotal moments where Carson Wentz is taking a sack, all those pump fakes and all those other things. A lot of those were him looking right at something he should have thrown, and for whatever reason, pocketing it and deciding not to. There was a play a couple weeks ago, I think it was against the Bengals, where Wentz had this really great like pump fake on like a double move thing, and it was really cool, and it turned into a good play. It was a really nice play, but this was not that. This was not him trying to like manipulate a defender downfield or whatever. This was indecision and poor vision. And when you mix that with spotty accuracy, and good for Addison and Jefferson and Hawkinson, who all three had great games, good for those three for erasing those inaccuracies. But they were a lot worse than anything we saw from McCarthy, even in like training camp times when you would say he had not a great day, he was spraying him a little. Carson was missing, and he wasn't seeing it. One of the ones that bugged me the most was actually the play he got hurt on. So we had some really noticeable absences in this. I'll get to it in a second, but one of them was Carson Wentz actually went out at the end of the half, and Nick Mullins had to come in. It was just for a kneel down, but everybody was like on pins and needles a little bit. Wentz came out of the half. He was fine. He had a sleeve on his shoulder because he had a third down play. He had, I think it was Thielen, wide open. I mean, like there, like, and he looked right at it and he pumped at it. For whatever reason, he pulled it back down and he went for the run, took a huge hit, hurt his shoulder. This is the Wentz experience. I feel pretty comfortable levying this as like, you should have thrown that, you shouldn't have run, because Wentz is famous for not throwing what he should throw, thinking he can make the play on his own with his legs, taking a terrible hit and getting hurt. It's just what he does. So we saw a lot of that in this game. And like at times, I think I even put it on Blue Sky. Like I felt like Carson Wentz was holding the Vikings hostage. Like we are in a hostage situation here. Everything is going the way it's supposed to go. Guys are open. A patchwork O-line is protecting way better than you thought they should. And we're still running around like crazy because our quarterback can't see the freaking field. It was really frustrating. Then you got to the final drive, and I'm like, they haven't the ball all week long, or all game long. Like, why am I ever going to think that Carson Wentz is going to do this? And lo and behold, he does this. I think Kevin O'Connell did a really good job in that drive in a no-huddle situation of just giving him something where the first read was going to be it. It was going to be first read or check down, and just letting him do that. And I think that if Wentz does end up playing versus Philadelphia, it sounds like that wouldn't be the plan, but is possible. It would like possible but not likely, I guess, is what the way it sounds. So if that ends up being the case, I think you have to do that. You just have to do this simplistic game plan that it's okay, either first read or dump it. That's all you're allowed to do, Carson, because if I'm going to ask you to read across the field, you just cannot do that. Which I'll mention this briefly. I'm sure I'll get a million questions about it. So after the game, Kevin O'Connell was asked about a number of things. One of which was, okay, so if JJ is healthy, are you still sitting with sticking with him, or is Carson Wentz the hot hand now, or whatever? And he basically was like, we're just happy to get the win. Don't ask me that right now, which feels like dodging the question. Everybody's gonna come up with it. I don't think so. I don't think Carson Wentz is remotely close to taking this job. I think he's been mostly cheeks, and I think that the Vikings are pretty excited to get JJ McCarthy back because at least he can go through the read. For all the flaws he had in Atlanta, he wasn't getting stuck like Carson Wentz does. It's really, really bad. One other thing I should mention, Jordan Addison is out of this game for the whole first quarter. No snaps, no participation. Turns out that he missed a walkthrough over the week, and he gets sat on the bench due to coach's decision, disciplinary. Apparently, Justin Jefferson pulled him aside and had words for him, according to Jefferson. Probably something that won't continue to have ramifications, and he did. Getting the game-winning touchdown will do a lot to like put away the frustrations of the past, but add it to the list of reasons that the Vikings have been mad at Jordan Addison at times, and to the reputation he's getting as kind of a screw-up. So, great on the field, not so much off the field. That's pretty frustrating. The other frustrating thing, so I guess we'll do the injuries thing, and we'll talk about the run defense at the end, but offensively, the Vikings are ravaged. Now, they have the three most important non-QB players on the team, which are Jefferson, Addison, and Hockenson. Or at least, I guess I shouldn't say that because Darrisaw's probably one of those. 3 of 4, because Darrisaw didn't finish this game. But, of course, you had Donovan Jackson. He's got his wrist thing. He actually got kind of close to playing. He did suit up for a practice in London, and they're hoping to have him back after the bye. Joe Huber took a pretty nasty L to Malik Collins at one point, and I think he kind of fell apart at the end of the game, but he did as well as you could hope for an undrafted rookie in his first start. You had Blake Brandel at center because Michael Juergens is nursing a hamstring. Ryan Kelly's on IR with his second concussion in 2 weeks, which is super scary. So you had Blake Brandel playing center for the first time. I thought he actually held up okay. And then you had Justin School at right tackle. And essentially Josh Oliver was on chip duty on Myles Garrett all day long, or whoever they had over there. I think it was mostly Garrett was over School, and they just chipped him all day long. So that was kind of what I hoped they would have: extra guys in protection, or call it extra half guys in protection if that's how you want to count a chipper. But Justin School got a ton of help and they kind of hid him. They also did a good job of getting the ball out quickly. As much as I didn't like what Wentz did, if he was going to throw it, he did it quickly. There was a stat, it was in the middle of the game that Arif Hassan posted that was like his pressure, I think it was at halftime, but I think this theme kind of carried into the second half, so it was okay. But like his time to throw was like 2.2 seconds or something nice and fast, and his time to pressure on pressured throws was like 4 seconds. Like if he was getting pressure, it was because he was holding the ball forever. But when he threw it, the timing, the rhythm was awesome, and he got the ball out, and that helps the O-line too. So I think the Vikings did a really nice job of papering over their decimated, ravaged O-line. But it got worse. Christian Darrisaw exited the game. We found out later from Kevin O'Connell that he had just reached his snap count because they've got him on a pitch count as he's still recovering from his ACL MCL thing. So they're putting him out there for like 3 quarters and saying they had him on a pitch count. He played the whole game against Pittsburgh. They didn't want to do that, so they said, we're going to pull you after the 3rd quarter. I have a couple of critiques about this. One, this is a very strange way to handle an ACL injury. You're kind of healthy or you're not. So if they wanted to be a little extra, they're basically admitting that they're pushing him a little bit in this injury, and I don't really love that. But the more salient critique I have is why, if you're going to limit Darrisaw's snaps, why are you taking away the crucial 4th quarter snaps? Do it in the 2nd quarter where if things go wrong, you have time to readjust. Why are you taking him out in the most pivotal moments of the game? And it worked, so they're not going to get too punished for it. But like, my goodness, that seems like a really weird way to allocate that. If Darrisaw snaps are indeed a limited resource for medical reasons, it's wild to allocate that to the beginning of the game, to the first 3 quarters instead of the 4th. When he goes out, Justin School moves back over to left tackle. Myles Garrett, I think, moved with him. And Walter Rouse goes over to right tackle, and they go from there, right? That line was fighting for its life, but it seems, at least at first glance, like they did admirably. There were still a couple of sacks. I don't think that they were better than the unit across from them, but they at least, when they lost slow enough that quick passes could happen and the Vikings could move the ball ever so slightly when they could. I do think that the problems on offense amounted to Wentz a lot more than we would expect them to. And Wentz also has a shoulder thing, so we have to watch that on the injury report. He came out with a sleeve. He was in the medical tent for a long time, and he went into the locker room early and all that. So that's going to be something to watch out for when it comes to practice reports and stuff like that over the bye. Come the Eagles game, JJ McCarthy actually kind of figures to be the healthier guy of the two, if that's the reason you're going to make a decision about who to play. All of that is sort of overcome when you get that last game winning drive, though. Like, it makes you forget all that stuff, and it's really nice. But what I can't forget is how the Vikings' run defense is deeply concerning. They were a bottom 5 run defense coming into this game, and they got gashed again. We got to talk about it, and we got to have some pretty existential conversations. That'll be next on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. The NFL season is well underway, and if you want to get involved, FanDuel has an offer you can't miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So for example, if you wanted to tail the Rabbits and put $5 on Browns plus 4.5, they got in early on that one before the line moved around a whole bunch with the quarterback change. But they got in at Browns plus 4.5, or at least Zoe did, and ended up covering. It was 21-17 was the final score. If you want those kinds of fun experiences, or just inject a little bit of fun into a game you otherwise like just don't care about at all, like the next London game is Jets-Broncos. You don't care about Jets-Broncos, right? But hey, if you want to get up early, put something down on FanDuel, have a little something extra to root for, like a Troy Franklin receiving prop or something with Tyler Conklin if you want, like whatever you want, you can find it at FanDuel. It's safe, it's super easy to use. They pay out instantly, whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into all the stats and film and all that kind of crazy stuff. FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, moving on with the Locked On Vikings podcast. Let's talk about this run defense. I mentioned it a little at the top of the show, but they got gashed super hard. And I complained about like Levi Drake Rodriguez being in there too often and him kind of taking L's. And I think Jalen Redmond had a really, really, really rough day, which is such a bummer because I thought I was going to get home and do like a Patreon on him being like a breakout star because he played so well against the Steelers, but that's a rough day. And that's how it works in the NFL. You know, you feel a lot different from one week to the next. Imagine how you felt after the Atlanta game. If I went and told you, nah, they'll be 3-2 going into the bye, you probably wouldn't have bought that like on the night after the Atlanta game and everything was so bad. And if I had told you how that Atlanta game was going to go right on the heels of winning Monday night against Chicago, you probably would have been like, screw off, right? That's how it goes. Bad game for Jalen Redmond. Bad game for Hargrave and Allen up front. Bad game for everybody up front. And the linebackers, both Eric Wilson and Ivan Pace, had days to forget as well. This was a day where running up the middle was really good because the D tackles couldn't hold their spot and the linebackers were super, super easy to trick. We saw Bijan do this. We saw Najee Harris, or not Najee Harris, who's the Steelers? Kenneth Gainwell do this. Wow, I just went to last year. We saw Kenneth Gainwell do this. All you have to do is press the gap. What I mean by that, it's Eric Wilson or Ivan Pace. This has been a thing for Eric Wilson his whole career, and it's a thing for Pace as well. I think this is a thing for Quay Walker was a big one too in Green Bay when I was scouting him. I remember I did a whole thing about this one, about him after a game where the Vikings kind of made mincemeat of him. If it's zone, right? So you're picking a gap, and usually you're picking a gap on either side of a double team. So you're going from like A gap to C gap or B gap to B gap or something like that, right? You're going across two different gaps. So if you go to 1A gap, that linebacker is going to scrape over the top and get to you, right? They're doing stack, track, fall back. That means they're trying to stack up with the defensive tackle. They're essentially trying to line themselves up so that their D tackle is exactly on a line between themselves and the running back. And then they track that running back and try to mirror where he goes. And if he cuts back, you fall back. Stack, track, fall back. If you are playing that technique, running backs know that that's the rules, right? That's universal football, and running backs understand that linebackers behave that way. So if you try to hit that gap really, really, really hard, you can maybe get that linebacker to overcorrect, and then you can cut back into the other gap. Or you can just do a quick head fake to the other gap, make that linebacker hesitate just a little bit, and then you can hit the front side gap and still find space. Eric Wilson and Ivan Pace have lost this little game of chicken a lot. And it doesn't help when there's a ton of space to work with because the guy who's supposed to be squeezing the gap is getting absolutely blown to smithereens by someone's center and guard. It is an issue with so many causes that it's really difficult for me to look at it. Like you can't, I can't answer the question, which I'm sure I will be asked in the mailbag. By the way, get your mailbag questions in. The Google form is in the show notes. I will try to do a mailbag tomorrow. I will also be flying internationally like all day, and then I'll like try to do a podcast when I get home. If I'm dead, I might be dead. So I might just pass out, and then there might not be a show. If there's no show, that's why. But if you want to ask me, what do you do about the run defense? I don't have a great answer because the causes are too plentiful. It's one thing if it's like this guy keeps making mistakes. If you just get Blake Cashman back, you get Eric Wilson out of there, that'll help, but it won't make Javon Hargrave a better run defender. It won't make Jalen Redmond not get blown out. It won't make Levi Drake Rodriguez get not blown out. It won't make Jonathan Allen not get blown out. All four of those guys had crimes to answer for here. And it won't make the other linebacker play better against like zone runs. It won't make your edges collapse in any better. Yeah, maybe you get Van Ginkel back. And to be honest, I think Dallas Turner, when it was his time to do this, did a pretty good job. It was like too much Bo Richter action for me, and like that turned into some bad stuff backside. But a lot of times too, that's a linebacker trying to collapse a tight end, and then he's losing the rep, and you're like back to blaming Eric Wilson. I kind of think of all the people, the edges are the ones that are the least to blame. It's really the interior. And it's everybody is just not playing up to standard. So I don't really know what to do. Outside of, okay, we just got to load the box then. We just need a safety in the box all the time. And hope that they just like try to throw into that. And hope that we just like get The next time we play a crummy rookie quarterback, we can just like force him to check into throws by loading the box and see if he can beat us. What I can't keep looking at is these like 13 play 8-minute drives. There's been just too many of them. Luckily, the coverage has been phenomenal, and I'm going to end with a positive because they did win, and they probably deserve more positivity than I'm giving them. But the coverage has been absolutely fantastic. Isaiah Rodgers has been a revelation. I mean, I complained about the corners a lot this offseason, and one of my questions was like, this dude's never been a full-time starter. How can we know he's good? And in my heart of hearts, I was like, man, but like he is kind of fast. Like, what if he? I was never gonna say that on the show, but there was a little voice in the back of my head that was trying to tell me, but what if he is good? And even that little voice was like too low on it. This dude's been awesome. They've, Byron Murphy's still Byron Murphy. I think they've gotten some up and down play out of Theo Jackson, but Metellus and Harrison Smith and all those guys are doing their thing. From a coverage perspective, the Vikings have been doing some really, really awesome stuff. And it's been helping. If you're a defense that gives up plays in the run but not in the pass, it's really hard for offenses to get explosiveness. And so the only way for them to do this is to have these 13 play drives that take a ton of time. And then suddenly you look really statistically because the other team only had 7 possessions because every possession took 9 minutes off the clock. Not to mention, get a sack, get a turnover, get one big play, and you can kind of ruin that. They can string 10 good reps together on you, but if you get one sack, the drive stalls and it's only 3 points. The philosophy of the Flores defense, right? Where it feels bad, but plays well. That said, I do think you have to go back to the drawing board about some of this run game stuff. I think you maybe have to consider loading the box a little more. You maybe have to consider trade deadline stuff to try to get a nose tackle back in. I know everybody's talking about Harrison Phillips, and you're right to. I think that is an extraordinarily critiquable decision. I think that Kwesi way overcooked that one. They should have just kept Phillips in the building, and if they were going to cut him next year, cut him next year. If you're going to make him a cap casualty, because it seems like that was probably the plan anyways with how good. I think they got a little bit too wrapped up in preseason. Our backups are playing well. Maybe we can get away with this and eke out a 6th-round pick, and they're just getting like phenomenally punished for it, and they probably deserve to be. But even if you put him in that, it doesn't fix what's going on with the linebackers or with the other D tackles. So it's a rock and a hard place. When you have like 4 different things going wrong, it's just that unit's bad. And I think the Vikings are just going to have a bad run defense all year. It's just going to be what it is. And you're just going to have to hope you can win games anyways. I just don't really see a great reason to believe that everybody's going to pull it together. But they do have a bye. Hopefully they get a little bit healthier. You have, hopefully Christian Darrisaw is no longer on a pitch count after the bye. Donovan Jackson with his wrist thing is scheduled to come back after the bye. J.J. McCarthy scheduled to come back after the bye tentatively. Brian O'Neill with his MCL sprain could be back after the bye. I don't have a clear timeline on that. It's a really large window. It's like 2 to 8 weeks. Like, who knows? So you could potentially get a lot back. You've also got Andrew Van Ginkel with his neck injury. Who knows what happens there? So the Vikings could get a lot healthier coming off of this bye when they host the Eagles. And we'll have to see just how they pull together a game plan against one of the best rushing teams in the league when they have a run defense that has been scorched by much lesser units. Get your questions into me tomorrow. We'll talk all the rest of the week about this game. I'll be able to take a better look at tape and stuff, especially once I'm home, and we'll get back into a nice little groove. I will see you all for that, and as always, Skol.